Thank you for coming with us on this journey to a golden future.
We pray that today's broadcast will help you in some way to find, fulfill, and finish God's will for your life.
Now we invite you to join us in the Golden State Baptist College radio studio.
Thank you for joining us today on A Golden Future. I'm one of your hosts, Brother Rob Simmons.
And I'm Brother Emery Fuller.
And we're so thankful that you joined us on our broadcast this week. Thank you for tuning in and listening to us.
Yes.
Brother Fuller, let's get right into it. Tell us a little bit about what we're going to do today on our broadcast.
Let's give you the show breakdown. Today, it is the Monday before Christmas.
Here we go.
And we have a Christmas gift for all of our listeners.
Here we go.
The first ever Golden Future guest today on the broadcast.
Come
We're
on.
excited about that. What else we got on the schedule for
Also,
today?
after our special gift for you with our guest, we have a brand new segment coming to you today, a little bit of bracket breakdown, and we'll dive into that at the end of the broadcast, so don't tune out. Keep on listening for that bracket at the end.
And I'm excited for this one.
I'm
anticipating this one. But we're also going to continue our series on the will of God. We've talked about how the will of God starts. Last week we talked about how the will of God stays. And today our special guest is going to talk to us about how the will of God stirs.
I'm excited.
So we'll see what that means. But before we do any of that, let's talk about last week's broadcast very quickly.
Oh, yes.
Why don't you just briefly review what we talked about last week?
Little weekly recap. Last week, in our episodes on the will of God, we covered the umbrella effect. Of course, obviously, that umbrella of authority in your life. And if you're going to be in the will of God, you got to stay under that authority. But if you want to find out where the right place and the right time is for you in the will of God, go back, tune into that episode last week.
Yes, you can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube as well, and anytime you want. But we also had a brand new segment there last week.
That one.
Rapid Fire Random Facts.
Probably my favorite.
And if you want to know how Japan is struggling, how you can help, tune into last week's broadcast.
Oh, yes.
And that will be a help to you.
But before you click away for that broadcast and find out there was also a mention of Kit Kats on that last broadcast, before you click away, let's jump in to this week's broadcast.
Oh, yes.
The moment you've all been waiting for.
The very first ever guest.
Yes.
He has been faithfully serving at North Valley Baptist Church for nearly a decade.
Come on. Not only that, he is also the author of one of the best books out there on the bus ministry.
He is a coffee connoisseur.
He is a sock specialist.
And a game guru.
Give it up. It's America's bus director,
Luke Flood. Oh, yeah. As he makes his way to the microphone and the crowd is cheering and clapping and celebrating.
You're going to have to add that in the after effects.
Yeah, we'll add that in post. We're going to add it.
Because I don't know about all of those things, but it is a pleasure and it is an honor to be on the broadcast. The first ever guest. What a special privilege
is ours. Now, we briefly talked about how you are a sock specialist.
Oh, yes.
So we got to know, what is your favorite pair of socks? You've got many.
So I do have many. Probably I don't wear them that often, but I have Tapatio socks.
Whoa. Okay.
I have Hot Cheeto socks that somebody gave me, and so we have quite a few Christmas lights during the Christmas season for sure.
Oh, some Christmas lights.
You gotta get them all on.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm gonna have to go sock shopping with you one of these days, and you'll have to help me pick out some flavorful.
We'll make it happen. We'll make it happen. It's a nice, fun way.
Well, we talked about how, we've been talking about the will of God, and we've been talking about, how they can find it, how they can live that. And I think you've got something for us today about the will of God.
I do. And this is a great broadcast. I want to thank you guys for having the broadcast first.
Thank you.
It is a great thing for the youth of America and youth around the world, really.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited about the opportunity to have this broadcast and to have Brother Emery, you and Brother Rob. You guys do a great job. But talking about the will of God, just very briefly, and the will of God stirring the heart. And really, it stirs the heart to action. The will of God is not something that people just sit around and kind of wait on, or people kind of just, I don't know what it is, I don't know where to go, I don't know what to do, and so you're waiting. Well, while you're waiting, why don't you go ahead and work? Work while you wait. A lot of people, they're just waiting and they want to get into the will of God. What is the will of God? And so they sit around and whether, they're all obviously good intention. I'm not saying there's bad intentions there, but there's a lot of just, you could be doing a lot of things that you already know what to do. The will of God is for us to go soul winning. The will of God is for us to read the Bible daily. The will of God is for us to pray. The will of God is to us to serve in our local church and to help our pastor and to help others of those maybe in full-time ministry, part-time ministry, to find an area of service. The Bible is full of people who are used mightily for God. You'll find one common thing. Well, there's lots of common things, but one specifically in particular, one thing you're going to find with the people who are greatly used for God, they were all working. They were all working while they got called. You had David, obviously, caring for the sheep. You had Moses doing the same thing in the wilderness, caring for a sheep while he got called of God. Elisha also working. Gideon working before he was ever used or called, quote unquote, into a known will of God. And that's exactly what happens in our own life, where God is not going to use the person who just sits around and warms up that spot on the couch, and is eating those potato chips, off of their rotund belly, And so the will of God uses working people. And it's incredible the amount of fulfillment that comes from responsibility. You'll never be truly fulfilled. You'll never be truly joyful until you have responsibility. There's really, just in a broad sense, not even necessarily theological, but just in a societal context, there's a lot of men, there's a lot of women who are not fulfilled. They don't know what to do in life. They just don't know where do they want to go. They don't know what they want to do. And it's because they have no responsibility. They shirk all the responsibility. They get it off. They say, I don't want that responsibility. I don't want a responsibility to have a husband or to have a wife. I don't want the responsibility to have kids. And so in turns, and they don't have anybody that depends on them. They don't need to be anywhere. They can just do whatever they want. They have no responsibility. And because of that, they have no fulfillment. They have no real direction. They have no joy that comes from fulfillment. And fulfillment comes from responsibility. When you complete that responsibility, then you get the fulfillment. Then you get that joy that comes with, I was able to complete this task, and especially even in the will of God, that God was able to use me greatly in this area, and that comes from responsibility. And so as you try to seek the will of God for your life, especially as a youth, my advice would be to take on responsibility. You should commit yourself to an area of service every single week in your local church. And when you commit yourself to that responsibility, as you fulfill that every single week, you will get the joy that comes along with that. Right. And eventually God will reveal his more specific, or you're looking for a geographical location. And in time, God reveals that to us. But in the meantime, how about we find an area of service? How about we take on some responsibility in our own life, and God uses that to further our reach for the gospel for the future?
I like that. That's good. That's good. Even thinking back to even your own personal testimony, I can even think about how this is true, knowing your testimony and how God called you. Would you mind telling the people about that, just a little bit, how the ministry here in college was able to help you kind of
Absolutely. One of the key things in my life that God used for me to know kind of what the will of God for me was working in ministry. Right. It was working week in, week out with families, with individuals, with parents. And oftentimes you say, I'm not qualified. I don't know what to do. I don't think I can do that. But you know what? God eventually will equip you, okay? He's not going to give you none of the, things in your life that you need in order to fulfill what he already has for you. For instance, even in college, I was a bus captain and had the privilege to do that. One of the greatest privileges of my life was to become that bus captain during the summer between my sophomore and my junior year. And but right soon after that, and God used our bus greatly. It was incredible, the miracles that he performed. But soon after that, I had parents asking me about child rearing advice. I had, all of these very serious people with drug addictions and people with messed up family lives. And I'm over here, I'm like 19 years old. I don't know any of that stuff. I don't know what to do. But God eventually equips you, and he uses those areas of responsibility to eventually reveal the will of God to you.
That's great. I think for me personally, that should be such an encouragement, especially for our listeners, because you don't need a Bible college degree to go soul winning.
Nope.
You don't need a Bible college degree to support your pastor.
Nope.
So no matter where you at, what age you're at, you could say, oh, I don't have the experience, or I don't have the training. Doesn't matter. God commands us in his word, the will of God. Go soul winning. Serve in the choir.
And it's amazing if you look back to biblical examples, the people who God used the most were of the lowliest positions of work. You have the shepherd just literally in the field. You have, Moses just literally in the wilderness, just doing what he's supposed to do. And it's these positions that are not grand. There's not these, like well-known public facing positions. It's the people who are quietly serving in the background that God uses the most.
That's right. That's great. I love that. I love our series on the will of God. And Brother Flood, we're so thankful that the will of God stirs your heart. I'm so thankful that you would join us today.
It is a privilege.
That you would count us worthy to be on our broadcast.
You guys are the greatest, by the way. I just want to let you know that. And
thank you.
I know that the emails have been pouring in that, reaffirm that, but I just want to say publicly.
We hope so. We hope so soon that this was a blessing to you. Hope you'll take it to heart. But before you leave, Brother Flood, Brother Emery, why don't you come up, ask Brother Flood about this?
Ooh, I'm ready for this.
Yeah, so we love the spiritual note, but before you leave, we want to have a little bit of fun, and we need your help because we're going on to a brand new segment called Bracket Breakdown.
Breakdown.
Hopefully this will be fun for you, fun for the listeners. I'm sure it'll be fun for us. Brother Simmons is going to come and kind of explain what Bracket Breakdown is.
Oh, no.
So we said it, right? We said at the very beginning, you're a coffee connoisseur. So today,
that's a high title.
For our Bracket Breakdown, this new segment, very first time on the broadcast, today we're going to have a bracket all about coffee.
Ooh,
so we're going to give you matchups, all right? You've seen them before.
Good.
We're going to give you matchups between two different coffee shops.
I like it.
And then you're going to have to choose which coffee shop you like out of those two. And you don't know which ones are coming next. So in the end, we will have the results of the two best coffee shops, and you will have to choose the winner for us.
That is definitely, and now it makes me a little bit nervous because you don't know what's going to come next and you don't know where it's going. By the way, if you're listening to this broadcast, why don't you comment and let us know what your favorite coffee shop is. Coffee is the Baptist drug, so it's approved, and I'm all in on the coffee. I drink it. I was literally drinking right before we came on the broadcast. I'm ready.
All right, let's do this.
What's the break?
The first matchup is
ready.
between
a
titan, a globally known chain, versus a little Santa Clara local native. So let's see if you can give us the insight. Is it Starbucks or Big Mug?
I do like Starbucks, and for those of you who don't know what Big Mug is over here on, I'm not going to put a plug in for Big Mug, but it's pretty good. Some of the college students go over there.
Right.
But, so the first, I'm not going to take up all this time, but the first time I went to Big Mug, I had no idea what to order. So I ordered like this, it's literally just an espresso shot with ice, and it was the dumbest thing I ever ordered in my life. And anyway, that one's actually a pretty easy one. I like Big Mug, but it's got to be Starbucks.
It's got to be Starbucks.
The consistency of Starbucks, the amount of variety that they have. Starbucks definitely is number one for a reason.
Let's now jump to the other side of the bracket, and we're going to go with two well-known. One, much more massive scale, but here's the matchup. Dutch Bros or McDonald's coffee.
McDonald's coffee. That's an option on this broadcast?
Yes, this is...
that's one of the options on the bracket.
We're just figuring out your opinion. That's it.
Well, you have to McDonald's there for the value. For the value.
That's pretty good for value.
That's true. That's very true. But that one's an easy one. Dutch Bros all the way. McDonald's should stop selling coffee. just stop.
Those
get
were
back to the fries.
If you know how a bracket works, the top seed faces the lower seed, and so
sense.
those were were the easy matchups. These might be a little bit harder.
I think it's harder.
It's supposed to.
Yeah, I get it.
All right, another local native, not so much local, but spread out around California is Phil's.
Ooh.
Okay, Phil's coffee.
I love Phil's.
Versus Dunkin' Donuts. Now America runs on Dunkin'.
Oh no!
But this is Luke Flood's opinion.
See, it's true. We actually don't have that many Dunkin' in California. There've been a few sprouting up every once in a while, But that one, if you don't know Phil's, you have to take my word for it, because you probably tried Dunkin', but you have to take my word for it. Phil's is better. Phil's
it's pretty good
is
stuff. I have to agree on that one.
You know, my thing is, though, Dunkin', they're good at donuts, but
They are good
leave
at
the
donuts.
coffee to Phil's. So.
All right, last matchup of the introduction bracket, we've got Blue Bottle.
Ooh,
It's a highbrow coffee establishment
highbrow.
versus Pete's Coffee.
Oh man,
I don't know. For me, this is the hardest one,
Mountains
but I don't
are
know
the
how
tough
it is
one.
for you.
Well, your decision won't affect mine. But what would you choose?
For me, based off of solely, I'm not much of a coffee guy. Based off of the hot chocolate, I got to give it to Blue Bottle. So
Ooh,
it's really
I didn't even know Blue Bottle does hot chocolate.
It's really good, but
that
it's
makes
not even
sense.
coffee. This is a coffee bracket. So
Blue Bottle is very, very posh, very, very highbrow. There's always a huge line, by the
There
way.
is, yeah.
But they got a line for a reason. Got to go Blue Bottle. I like
Blue
Pete's.
Bottle,
Pete's
all
is
right,
local
all right.
too. Pete's started
Pete's is a good
locally
one.
anyway, but up in Cal Berkeley. But
all right,
Blue Bottle.
we've made it to the second round, and we've got Starbucks
Good.
versus Phil's.
Ooh.
So these are going to get really hard now.
Now you are getting really tough, because there's different times in the day. You drink a different type of coffee.
True.
Throughout the day, you know.
True.
And but yeah, that's tough. It's got to be Phil's. Phil's has better.
Wow,
Phil's
okay.
has better beans. Phil's has better
All right.
coffee beans and is a better. Because what you
that.
could do to each of these is if you can drink it black, if you drink it with no cream, no sugar, that's what I'm going to go
That's
on
what you're
from
going off
here
of.
on out.
Okay,
Because
all right.
yeah. Anyway.
Okay, that might really change the direction of this bracket with that particular thing now, because we're looking at Dutch Bros, known for their sweetness and their
that's true.
extravagant
Yep.
flavors, versus Blue Bottle.
So, and if I'm going with this direction, if we're just talking about coffee, not talking about how great their milk and sugar and their other, syrups are, you got to go Blue Bottle. You have to
All
do
right.
the Blue Bottle, because again, it's the roast and the type of beans that they get, and they source them. And again, I'm not an expert, but
All
anyway,
right.
it's good.
Now we've come to crown the winner.
Oh no. This
Blue
stuff.
Bottle was just sent. Right before that, you sent Phil's. So now you've got to choose one or the other between Phil's and Blue Bottle.
That one's really, really tough.
I know.
That one is really tough. And if you don't, maybe those who are listening, please correct me. Write some hate mail or do something, because I'm gonna choose probably a brand that nobody knows anywhere else. But Blue Bottle Coffee would probably be my number one choice out of all of those. They don't have a whole lot of locations, but if you do have a location in the area, you have to
gotta
try
stop
it.
by.
They are very, 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 very good.
And good news is, if you're not a coffee connoisseur like Brother Luke,
They have hot
but you
chocolate.
like hot chocolate,
They got hot chocolate.
there's something for you too. So I
That's a good
definitely,
one.
wow, I did not expect that, but I can see it now that we've gone through the whole bracket. But wow, thank you so
That
much
was a
for
good
that,
time. That was a
Brother
good time.
Fled.
I like
Thank you
the
for the
bracket breakdown.
yeah, it's fun. Hopefully we'll see that one again sometime down the road. But
That'd be good.
well, for all of our listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in to a Golden Future Radio broadcast. We hope that if you enjoyed this episode, you would follow wherever you listen to podcasts, maybe even share it with a friend. And don't forget, doing God's will today leads to God's will tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to a Golden Future radio broadcast.
If you'd like to listen to our other episodes, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
Also, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at agoldenfuture@gsbc.edu.
And tune in next week to the broadcast dedicated to help this generation discover God's purpose for their lives.